Hello everyone, I'm Troy, and today I have an interesting question. Have you ever wondered what a generic Marvel movie would be like in a high fantasy setting? Well, fret not, because BioWare has answered this question.
Into the fade, aren't we?
And digging up a lot of...
That's right, today I'm going to review a game that I was very much looking forward to. Being a long-time BioWare and Dragon Age fan, this is one of my most anticipated games of the year. I'm talking about the action RPG Dragon Age the Veilguard. And I know I just maybe took a slight jab at Veilguard with this Marvel comparison, so you might be thinking, geez, Troy hates this game. But that is not the case. But I don't necessarily love it either. It's alright, decent. It's definitely not as bad as some people might make you think. And there actually are some things that I like about Veilguard and that I had a lot of fun with. Hey, even the Marvel comparison, sometimes I love a good Marvel movie. They can be a lot of fun. However, in the end, Veilguard is a big reboot for Dragon Age, which I have been a fan of since Origins, and a lot of people are not gonna like it. Veilguard does come across a bit shallow, as well as incomplete. You can tell this game had a tough development. So let's go ahead and dive into all that. But before I do, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't already, please give this video a like as well as subscribe to my channel. I love to talk about and review all the latest video games I'm playing, as well as I stream live on Twitch. So yeah, subscribe please. Yeah, I'm always bad at these parts. All right, so Veilguard, what's the deal? As usual, I'm gonna break down the different facets of the game, say what I think worked, what I think didn't work, and then give the game a final score out of 10. Starting with the bones of any video game, the technical performance and bugs. And from a technical standpoint, Veilguard is great. It looks and runs fantastic. And we'll go ahead and get to the art style later, as I think that's a little bit more of a mixed bag. But if we're looking at just the visual fidelity, it's awesome. Colors pop, the lighting is excellent, and the textures are very detailed. Performance-wise, it ran excellent on my mid to high-end PC. I encountered practically zero bugs, which is shocking for a big RPG such as this. I did get some occasional frame dips in a few environments, particularly the forested areas, but that's really it. So I cannot deny the technical polish that Veilguard has. However, the technicals are just a bare minimum. That's not why we play BioWare RPGs. We play them to experience epic storylines, immerse ourselves in interesting universes, and interact with memorable characters. Well, so how does Veilguard hold up on these accounts? For the most part, actually kinda good. Well, it's a bit more complicated than that, so let me go ahead and explain. For one, the general setting and lore and just the universe is awesome. Veilguard takes place in Northern Thedas, which is home to some of the most interesting factions and societies in the Dragon Age universe, and Veilguard does a pretty good job at taking a look at these. However, this is just more of a symptom of being a Dragon Age game, which BioWare did a phenomenal job creating this universe back in 2009's Origins. But what Veilguard continues on and expands here, for the most part, it was pretty damn good. The main story, albeit a little safe, was a classic and enjoyable save the world romp through these lands, and does have some memorable moments. There are some big choices throughout that do have some consequences that will rear their head later, although there perhaps weren't quite as many as I would prefer. In particular, the last mission is great, and really is a hark back to Mass Effect 2 with a wide array of possible endings, outcomes, and even some deaths. Kinda crazy. And then there are the characters themselves, with the main group being your 7 companions, which in classic BioWare style you can bring along with you on your missions. They each also have their own individual quest lines and story arcs, and for the most part, these were actually pretty good. I found nearly all the companions interesting or unique, with some having some pretty compelling arcs. A few of my favorites were Lucanus, the demon-possessed rogue who must grapple with his literal demon inside of him. And then there's Nev, the famous mage detective who must confront the responsibility of her fame and her duty to Minrathous. I also romanced Nev, and yes, each companion is romanceable for the hornier gamers out there, and her romance in that arc was pretty compelling. I'd say the weakest is probably Bellara, whom I just kind of found awkward and obnoxious, but even she kind of had some good moments, and I didn't outright hate her. Also, yes, I do want to address and shout out that Tosh, the Qunari warrior companion, is non-binary, and her arc revolves around that struggle with her identity and the conservative Qunari culture. So with that, if you are one of those anti-woke people, then yeah, you're probably not gonna like this game because it has scary woke themes.
Sorry, did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Fucking pronouns! Fucking gender ambiguity!
Oh god, how could they tackle such adult themes that are present in the real world? Oh my god. Anyways, you get what I think about that. But with that out of the way, I actually found Tasha's arc pretty compelling. I'm not too familiar with these things myself, but I do personally know non-binary people in real life, so to see them represented here, it was pretty cool. Alright, so yes, Dragon Age the Veilguard has a solid story and interesting characters. We're off to a good start here. However, this is dragged down a ton by the absolutely atrocious dialogue. And this is at no fault of the voice actors. The voice acting ranges from pretty good to okay, but this is entirely on the writing. It's just a shame because the overarching writing is good, but the moment-to-moment writing is terrible. Honestly, Skillup put it perfectly in his review when he said,
"Every interaction between the companions feels like HR is in the room, and every interaction led by the main character, Rook, sounds like he's addressing an under-12 soccer team before a semi-final, or teaching toddlers how to properly share toys."
Unfortunately, that really hits the nail on the head. Now, I don't think it's quite as consistent as Skillup makes it seem in his review, but the writing can very often feel juvenile and cringe. So often would I roll my eyes at the lack of nuance.
And you're either the first to wake, or you simply aren't sleeping some nights.
Thank you, Professor, but I'm fine. Mostly.
That was really reassuring until mostly.
In between the two? It's hard. I've never had a chance like this kind of access to knowledge. It's Solas's old home. I want to learn as much as I can.
And we've time to learn it. But in order to do that, you must take care of yourself.
Emmerich's right. Relax, sleep, you'll work better.
RPGs like this, for my first playthrough, I usually like to take a more pragmatic approach to my choices in dialogue. I'll be evil when I want to be evil or think it's the best choice. I'll be rude when I want to be rude. I'll be nice when I want to. But in Veilguard, so often are you forced to be nice. Like, sure, maybe BioWare wanted to be more PG-13 with this game and they made it impossible to truly be evil, but you can't even be a dick. Sometimes I just want to be a dick. The more rude options are just like direct and to the point. So you're either this super nice dork or just direct and blunt. And your playable character, Rook, will just ham fist in like super dorky, nice quips out of nowhere that just feel forced. The dialogue is just... It's not all awful, but it ranges from decent to just straight up terrible. And so often I would select a dialogue choice and what spits out of Rook's mouth did not match how I felt it should have been said. And all of this really makes it not feel like a role-playing game because you never get a true feeling of who your Rook is or how you want them to act. Yes, there are choices to be made, but they almost never have a factor of morality. There are like 2 or maybe 3 that could be seen as morally worse or better. It's very disappointing, and this really drags down the entire story and characters because just sitting through this dialogue can be really rough. But alright, before I get more upset, let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk about combat, which over the course of Dragon Age has changed from purely turn-based and slowly got more action-focused. And Veilguard continues this as it's pretty much a full-fledged action game. And overall, the combat, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. There were times where I was having a lot of fun and felt really engaged. Then there were times where I was quite bored. I think initially, I was impressed. I mainly used the warrior class while also getting a good chunk of the way through as a mage. This definitely is an odd comparison, but the warrior class controls a lot like Kratos from God of War. with a dodge and then a double dodge roll, light and heavy attacks, and even a shield that you can throw and it returns back to you like Kratos' axe or Captain America. I haven't played quite enough as the mage yet to really get a good feel, but so far it seems more interesting to me than the warrior, with both a staff and spellblade option. Anyways, the foundation, it feels very solid. There's a separate stagger bar that lets you pull off finishers. Then there's like a variety of combos. However, eventually this all ends up feeling a bit shallow and you'll find yourself using these same moves and abilities over and over again with nothing really introduced later to shake things up. You can only have 3 equipped at any time. And I think being able to have more equipped would have helped keep combat feeling fresh and varied for longer. I'm also not a fan of how your companions are handled in terms of combat. They are present and will attack enemies, but they can't be controlled and they don't take damage or become knocked or anything like that. They are essentially just extensions of your kit, each with 3 additional abilities. But for the most part, these abilities are just kind of boring and serve as either a primer or detonator, which is this new system where some abilities will prime a target to then be detonated by another. And this is alright, but I wish the animations or something looked different depending on the abilities used, because after the 100th detonation pulled off the same exact way, it was just And when it comes to enemy variety, it's decent enough on paper, but effectively they all feel the same. They feel very similar to fight, and they don't really force you to change up your strategies in any meaningful way. Again, the foundations of combat are pretty damn good, and it feels slick, but eventually it just ends up being a bit shallow and repetitive. All right, now let's go ahead and move on to progression, which again is a bit of a mixed bag. You'll level up, obtaining skill points, which you can then use on your skill bush or whatever it is to unlock perks and abilities. That's all fine and dandy enough, and there are some cool perks and abilities to work towards. However, at level 20, you'll get to select a subclass, with each class having 3. I was hoping these subclasses would really have some powerful build changing abilities and perks, but they were each kind of disappointing. You really only get 1 new ability and 1 ultimate with a handful of decent perks. It just wasn't enough to feel substantial in any meaningful way. Along with leveling up your class, you'll get new gear with your classic color coding rarity system, as well as a numerical level associated with each piece. The color or rarity is progressed through either finding more copies of the item around the world or buying them at vendors, while the numerical level is increased through the caretaker in the hub location, the lighthouse. The gear progression I did find pretty solid. It is satisfying to find a piece that you feel fits your playstyle well, and then progressing it further by advancing that specific faction's power or exploring the world. You do get attached to certain pieces of gear. This is in contrast to some RPGs which will just bombard you with endless loot that can kind of be a headache to sort through. And that leads me to the exploration and the world design, which again, you guessed it, is a bit of a mixed bag. On one end, exploration can be quite fun because there is always meaningful rewards, such as progressing your gear or statues that give you health boosts and skill points. However, on the other end, some of the environments you come across feel and look incomplete and cheap. Sure, from a graphical standpoint, the game is very impressive, but the way some of the environments are designed are from like a game in 2010. For example, like Treviso, one of the major cities. You'll scamper around its flat, unnatural roofs and zip across these lines from one area to another. It's just kind of meh. It doesn't feel like you're in a major city. It feels like a map from Call of Duty. Although some areas are designed better than others. So again, it's a mixed bag. It definitely feels like BioWare had to rush some of these locations out the door. And then you also have your hub area, the lighthouse, which works fine as any hub area would. However, then to move from the lighthouse to a normal location, you have the crossroads. This serves as a sort of connection area and also has a decent amount of interesting things to explore and side quests to uncover. I actually did enjoy exploring this area more than some of the larger locations. Speaking of side quests, these are, you guessed it, also a mixed bag. I did find a few interesting ones and then some absolute stinkers. So yeah, I'm sure you're seeing a bit of a theme here. Anyways, in general, yeah, exploration and world design I'd say it's fine. It's just fine. All right, we are almost done, but before I wrap up my thoughts, I want to quickly mention Veilguard's art style, which has been getting ragged on pretty hard ever since BioWare released that god-awful first trailer. And for me, it's aight. If you can't tell at this point, this game is very lukewarm for me. I think technically it does look good. The colors pop. However, with the very PG dialogue and just the overall lighter tone that Veilguard has, this art style only further cements that image. So on one hand, it does kind of fit. However, this is not the tone and style that I would have taken Dragon Age. No, I enjoyed the darker, grittier origins. I would have definitely preferred a more darker, grittier tone in Veilguard as well. And speaking on the tone, Veilguard does have some darker moments. It's not always blowing rainbows up your ass. But in general, yes, it is much lighter, nicer, and brighter game than its predecessors. And again, this is not the direction that I would have liked Dragon Age to take, but for what it is, it's not that bad. And its art style does match what it's trying to do. Alright, so all in all, Veilguard, it's just kind of alright. It's decent, it's fine. It's definitely not a terrible game, and I think the core of what most people want out of a BioWare game is solid. That being the overarching story, the interesting world, and some compelling characters. However, everything else is mostly a mixed bag, with the moment-to-moment dialogue between Rook and these characters being awful. And it just makes Rook himself be a very weak character. It's very tough to roleplay. Honestly, would barely consider Veilguard a role-playing game. It's basically an action game with some choices to be made. And just the general direction that BioWare has taken this, in the end, for me, is disappointing. It does feel a bit Disney-fied, and personally, I appreciate more darker themes and tones, although there still is moments of darkness to be found. And this issue is very subjective, and some people might actually really enjoy the lighter tones, so, we'll see. But because of all that, my final score for Dragon Age The Veilguard is a 6.5 out of 10. It's a decent game, but I'd only recommend it to either hardcore BioWare or Dragon Age fans if you can put up with the lighter tone, or someone who really likes this RPG light approach. This is RPG junk food. And hey, sometimes I like junk food. Something a little bit easier to consume. But being easier to consume or more accessible does not make it better. If you're looking for a big, grand, deep RPG, this definitely is not it. Go play Baldur's Gate 3, which is just leagues above Veilguard. Overall though, for me, I did have fun playing it, but this was a disappointing return for BioWare, which BioWare has been having a very rough go lately. I'm a huge fan of Mass Effect and the previous Dragon Ages. I'd consider Mass Effect 2 to be one of my top 5 favorite games of all time. Although it does look like Veilguard is selling well enough, so I really do hope that BioWare can continue their work, but I'm hoping for something a bit more adult next time. Their next project is a new Mass Effect game, so if this one is all Disney-ified like Veilguard was, I don't know, I'm gonna be pretty sad. So thank you so much for watching this video, and go ahead and leave a comment down below. What do you think of Veilguard? I know some people are really enjoying it, and if so, why? Also, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye!